what we do now. Our film shows where dehumanization leads at its worst. It shaped all of our past and present. Right now, we stand here as men who refute their Jewishness and the Holocaust being hijacked by an occupation which has led to conflict for so many innocent people.
I made a mistake yesterday. I made the mistake of having hope. I was foolish. Should not have done it. I gave up on the Oscars a very, very long time ago. A long time ago. And for the past, I would say 6 or 7 years or so, around there, I haven't really cared much for the Oscars. I don't even watch them 99% of the time. They're usually something where I'll be scrolling through social media and it's like such and such happened. And oh, neat. I think the exception to that was the major upset that happened with La La Land, where La La Land was nominated for all the Oscars. It's the number one film in terms of Oscar noms. It's like La La Land and Titanic or something like that. It's just, utterly bizarre. I didn't get it. I never understood why La La Land was considered such a visionary masterpiece. To me, it was more just kind of it makes sense. The Academy does love movies that talk about the Academy and the art form itself. So a little bit of a self-suck there. But anyways, I checked out of the Oscars a while ago. But every now and then, I'll peer back in. I'll definitely want to see these moments that happen that are supposed to be historic moments. And I do remember, the Oscars where a whole bunch of people were coming forward and talking about Ukraine and the illegal invasion of Russia into Ukraine and how we had to stand up for Ukrainians. And certainly we should not stand idly by while war crimes are being committed, that kind of stuff. And so I had expected, of course, to see perhaps some speeches about Palestine and Palestinians. And unfortunately, there's not as many of those available. There are, of course, the pins I will show you very shortly that some artists wear, that artists for ceasefire are demanding, and some artists who are asking and calling for ceasefire did in fact win last night. And one of those people is Jonathan Glazer, whom has been completely taken out of context by a lot of people, maliciously, including major media outlets, for apparently rescinding his Jewishness, which is not at all what he did or said. It's kind of wild to me at a time when we have live television, it's just technology of today, where he can say things out loud in front of, again, millions of people globally, and then millions more on the internet, and then still have his words completely taken out of context, misconstrued, and completely transformed to mean something other than what he said, which is horrifying and scary, especially considering how powerful the message was. This was by and far the best moment of the 2024 Academy Awards ceremony. Yes, it's delightful that Cillian Murphy has gold. Good. I'm happy for him. Do like me some Cillian Murphy. I think he is very talented and plays many a good character, and I've enjoyed his canon. Very, very sad to see Lily Gladstone lose, and honestly have absolutely no ill will towards Emma Stone whatsoever.
Clean up your room.
I may be the only person who actually figured out what happened here. I can explain it, by the way, if you all didn't know. This is pretty wild. Mild spoiled warnings for Nathan Fielder's series The Curse on Showtime. But on The Curse Showtime with Nathan Fielder wrote a script. It's not one of his quasi documentaries. In the script, Emma Stone plays a character who tries to befriend an Indigenous artist, and in the process of trying to befriend an Indigenous artist, actually steals the spotlight from her, despite the fact that it was the Indigenous artist who many people would have previously respected for her work. And then there's also a sequence in Nathan For You where he actually says, he planned behind the scenes, it didn't work out, that he was actually going to rig the Oscars, and that sketch didn't work out. If you combine the two, you add the plan, it seems like this entire thing was conceived and designed by Nathan Fielder. So this is actually part of some massive elaborate sketch that no one's recognized yet, except for myself. I'm the first person on the internet to figure it out, so I'm pretty proud of myself for that. So well done, Nathan Fielder. You really did the long game on this one. It did one hell of an elaborate bit. And so that's where we find ourselves today. And you can tell in Emma Stone's face, right, when she was announced as the winner. This is her second Academy Award, after all. The first one being for La La Land. All comes full circle, and she clearly is a little bit like, what the fuck? Oh shit! What? No, that was kind of the face, but absolutely. I've got nothing bad to say about Emma Stone. She didn't choose that. The Academy did. The Academy are the ones who deserved the finger wag. But no, it's me at the end of the day. That's what I realized shortly thereafter. I was like, you know who's truly at fault? Myself, because I did that thing where I've completely written off all award ceremonies, very proud of myself. And then, you know, there's times when all of a sudden they pull you back in.
Fuck the Oscars, you know?
Where you're like, you know what, this could actually be an incredibly pivotal moment, especially an inspirational one to so many young Indigenous children who haven't had, you know, someone rise to these ranks in history before. This is the first time that a person, an Indigenous person from the US was nominated in that category in the 95 years of the awards ceremony, and now that this moment is what it is. But I still think that Lily Gladstone made history. I still think that she deserved, you know, the Academy Award for Best Actress. Lily Gladstone does use she/they pronouns, by the way, and yeah, it's just what it is. But this moment was good.
It's Birkenau State Museum for their trust and guidance. To my producers, actors, collaborators. All our choices were made to reflect and confront us in the present, not to say, look what they did then, rather look what we do now. Our film shows where dehumanization leads at its worst. It shaped all of our past and present. Right now, we stand here as men who refute their Jewishness and the Holocaust being hijacked by an occupation which has led to conflict for so many innocent people. Whether the victims of October the 7th in Israel, or the ongoing attack on Gaza, all are victims of this dehumanization. How do we resist?
Unbelievable bravery, and you can see his, like, you know, his hands shaking while he's delivering the speech. But like the Oscars have always been this really weird juxtaposition of basically like these rich liberal elitists who kind of live in their castles, who are all super famous, and the stuff that's going on outside of the kingdom, you know, outside of the fiefdom, where all of a sudden, you know, they might bring attention. A couple of people, and brave people at that, might bring attention to the horrors and atrocities that are happening just outside of. Oh my God! I realize as I'm saying this, the whole thing is just like this. No, but like it was incredible that he did this, and you would think that his choice of words were very, very precise, which I would say they were. After all, he is reading a speech that he had prepared, written, and he's holding the sheet itself, and did not say that he renounces his Jewishness. But that's not what a lot of people ran with when they heard this whole thing, or decided, hey, I'm going to now clip this in a lot of ways. You know, the way streamers get clipped, but this is just infinitely millions and millions of times worse, where apparently he said, and multiple people were saying, I can't believe that someone who won an award making a film about the Holocaust would use his speech to renounce his Jewishness. That never happened. No. Again, really scary times that we live in a day and age where, like, we have cameras and this is live in front of millions of people. This is not AI. This was not artificially generated. And yet still, such precise words and powerful words can be misconstrued like that. Glazer then noted that both he and Wilson are amongst the many Jewish people who object to Israel's government's perennial claims supported by Western countries, including the U.S., that Israel's occupation of Palestinian land and subjugation of Palestinian people is necessary to provide Jewish people with safety from the kind of persecution that ultimately led to the Holocaust. Right now, we stand here as men who refute their Jewishness and the Holocaust being hijacked by an occupation which has led to conflict for so many innocent people. Whether the victims on October 7th in Israel or the ongoing attack in Gaza, all are the victims of this dehumanization. How do we resist? Glazer's comments were immediately decontextualized by right-wing commentators, including Newsweek opinion editor Batya Ungarsargan, who claimed the director displayed moral rot by telling the audience he refuted his Jewishness. I simply cannot fathom the moral rot in someone's soul that leads them to win an award for the movie about the Holocaust and then, with their platform given to them, accept the award by saying, we stand here as men who refute their Jewishness. Your line about what they said, adding a period in the middle of the sentence, said Yochai Lieberman, co-founder of the Jewish-led Palestinian group If Not Now, which has frequently been accused of anti-Semitism by pro-Israel groups by objecting to Israeli apartheid. They clearly meant they refute the way their Jewishness has been hijacked. You're supposed to be a journalist. The Israeli group Breaking the Silence, run by veterans of the Israeli Defense Forces who now object to the occupation, compared the outraged reaction to Glazer's speech to the aftermath of the Israeli filmmaker Yuval Abraham's comments at the Berlin International Film Festival, where he spoke out against the subjugation of Palestinians in the West Bank. Abraham was immediately denounced as anti-Semitic by Israeli media and received death threats, while the German government announced it would open an investigation into the filmmaker's comments. And this warrants an investigation.
Artists for ceasefire.
to give credit to Rami Youssef, when asked about it, he gave a very, in-depth and eloquent speech about opposing, Israel's genocide of Palestinians.
Guys, in the center. Straight ahead right here, please. Thank you. Straight ahead. And Billy right here, Billy. Guys, together, straight ahead. I'm looking right here. Straight ahead. Smart, right here. Yo, bro.
This pin, artists for ceasefire.
So yeah, that's essentially as far as you can go in terms of a visual protest. You got to wear decoder rings and hope everyone understands what you're talking about. And again, credit to Rami Youssef, who did in-depth explain and make very, very clear in his language and words what he's asking for in terms of a ceasefire.
His arrival. So some of the arrivals wore these red pins, and Marc Ruffalo.
I was at a Free Palestine rally on Saturday. It was pouring rain in Vancouver. I think it's like the 5th or 6th one that I've been to, and the numbers are still huge. This is not going away. And I think people need to recognize that like not only is this still something in which people are not just suddenly going to forget, and this, again, should be messaging to Joe Biden, who seems to want to ignore the whole uncommitted voters. The uncommitted voters are sending a pretty goddamn strong message. You should be listening to your own constituents.
Yes, the IDF, which has committed war crime after war crime, including specific examples like this: a group of Palestinian men waving a white flag is shot at, dozens of elderly Gazans executed by Israeli troops. And again, these are individual stories, but there's already over 30,000 Palestinians killed in Gaza since October 7th. We're not even including everything that took place before October 7th to Palestinians in both Gaza and the West Bank. 50 years of occupation abuses.
Well, shame on David Doel. He should know that history began on October 7th. Everyone knows that now.
Committed by an 18-year-old Palestinian. And again, it goes on and on and on. We could be here all day, all night, because this has gone on for 50 years. So this account also showcasing, in response to the AIPAC tweet, nobody is falling for this anymore. So this was a piece that was put out October 6th. 2023 is the deadliest year for Palestinian children, say human rights groups. That was even before the ongoing massacres committed by the right-wing Israeli government following October.
Total sidebar, I noticed that we're wearing similar plaid. I played myself. Yeah, this is something to bring up too, because obviously the messaging of the White House, for example, they haven't changed at all. It's still basically like, we need to invoke and talk about the horrifying atrocities that occurred on October 7th and make sure that you understand that it was a bad thing. And it's like, yes, no one's on the other side of the issue. No one wants to see civilians kidnapped or killed or anything else. There's supposed to be non-combatants. There's supposed to be rules of engagement. But we are talking about a occupation right now, and we are talking about an occupation that has completely asymmetrical power dynamics, in which one side is effectively now being forcibly starved and, I would say effectively tortured through this mass starvation, bombing, and psychological campaigns that are happening. To continuously invoke October 7th as if like, hey, this was bad, right? You understand that? It's like, yes, absolutely. No one outside of a very fringe and radical amount of people are basically celebrating whenever children are killed, for example. That doesn't change anything, though, in terms of what is taking place here. And that's certainly not going to keep working either, is the other thing, right? Like, you can't just continuously keep telling people, well, I like Kamala Harris, she responded to the youth rejection of basically the entire framing of what is taking place between Israel and Palestine as saying like, well, I would hope, like, we love young kids, we love their energy, and we love young voters especially, and we're hoping that you're gonna be working real hard, canvassing and knocking on doors in the upcoming election for us, but we also would hope that they take the time to realize how horrifying October 7th truly was. And it's like, yeah, you just lost any single young voter that you were hoping to knock on doors for you by doing this. Kids aren't dumb. Kids aren't stupid. Young teenagers aren't dumb or stupid. And young voters, young adults aren't dumb and stupid. Everyone has eyeballs. They can see all of what is happening before their eyes now,
October 7th. Not to mention...
Baby, so confess. Even
So if you can't make out what's being said, Biden says, I told Bibi, and don't repeat this, but you and I are going to have a come to Jesus meeting.
So what does that mean to you, a come to Jesus meeting?
I don't know. I'm not familiar with the term, even though Jesus wasn't born that far away from here. I can tell you that if it means having a heart-to-heart conversation, we've had that plenty of times over the 40 years that I've known Joe Biden, and over the 12 or 13 conversations that we've had since the beginning of the war. But ultimately, you know, I'm the prime minister.
Yeah, I'll give you guys a quick preview of what this all means. From Politico, Netanyahu vows to defy Biden's, quote, red line on Rafah. Israel's prime minister insists his priority is to prevent another terror attack like the October 7th Hamas raid. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he intends to press ahead with an invasion of the city of Rafah, which experts have said would be absolutely devastating to the civilian population on the southern border of the Gaza Strip, in defiance of the United States President Joe Biden, who has warned that such an offensive would be a, quote, red line. Amid signs of an increasing frustration with Netanyahu, the U.S. president told MSNBC on Saturday that he opposed an escalation of the conflict into Rafah and said that he would not accept 30,000 more Palestinians dead. Well, I mean, you're not doing anything to stop that, though, Joe. In fact, you're an accelerationist at this point.
There's never before in uniting to destroy Hamas and ensure that we don't have another Palestinian terrorist state like the one we had in Gaza that could threaten the state of Israel. That's something that the people of Israel are united behind.
Yeah, I wonder what's going to come when the dust settles and the complete rubble and like destruction of Gaza is suddenly like, if your house was destroyed, your family was murdered, your bloodline was wiped off the face of the earth, every single relative you had was killed in bombing campaigns, and all of a sudden it was like, so who did that? Oh, that was the Israeli government, and they were fueled and weaponized by the United States and their allies. Okay. Who's in opposition to that? Locally, centrally, in your area? Well, I guess the opposition, the resistance force, if you will, would probably be Hamas. Like, okay, well, tell me more. Well, I mean, a lot of Hamas fighters have been wiped out. Well, should we start Hamas 2 then? Perhaps Hamas 3, a spin-off, you know, make a new group entirely. I don't know, but it's just like, that's where I'm at, you know, that's pretty much, again, it's like my entire family's been wiped out. All my relatives have been killed. The house is destroyed. Thousands of children starving to death. From my POV, it kind of seems at this point now, what is there in opposition to? So the idea that this campaign is effectively getting rid of terrorism or terrorists, again, this is the same thing that the United States has been saying for a very long time, right? The operation to liberate Iraq, Operation Iraqi Freedom, to bring democracy to parts of the Middle East forcibly, seems to have a very detrimental long-term effect.
And from what I can see, most Americans support that as well.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, President Biden's been around a long time. It's easy.
Of course, if you frame a question like, what do you support? What do you mean? Well, do you support the hostages being released? Yes, I'm sure the average American is going to be like, yes, of course, release the hostages. I do think that civilians should be kept as hostage. No, I'm not on that side. If you told Americans and you framed the question, do you think it's justifiable to slaughter 30,000 people, the majority of whom are civilians, children and women specifically, do you think that is an adequate response in order to try and retrieve hostages when this has not actually successfully returned hostages, but ceasefire negotiations have? Ceasefire negotiations have returned way more hostages than, again, the ethnic cleansing campaign, that whole thing. I'm sure a lot more Americans would then probably have a different response, right? All depends on the phrasing, leading the witness.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Can you please hit the like and subscribe button and maybe leave a comment? It really does help the videos out. But first, the people who produce everything you see before you and make this entire channel possible: Amazing Fletch, Anna Loves Riley, Ariane McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Salim, Multi Mondi, Omni, Peanut Butter Blondie, Political Puppy, Quiet 185, Rachel K, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Ruby K, Cernicus, Spinach Monster, Stellar Vision, Sebastian Demel, Trevbot.exe, Words Greenwood, and Travis McClinton. And also, thank you to every other person who helps fund this show. Their names are on the screen right now. It would not be possible without every single one of them. We cannot thank you enough. And if you want to join the Patreon, please come to patreon.com/theserfs and help us exist.